Tears out, and I'd like to. Come out when it needs to come out. Just look at this, guys.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. Bonjour et bienvenue. My name is David, director of the French Voyageur Camp, and it has been one of the great honors of my life to have seen the impact that our camp has had on our dearly beloved Ikse, but importantly, to also see how Ikse has had just as significant of an impact on our camp. Ikse joined us as a camper, then a young counselor, then a mentor counselor, and then my assistant director. Ikse has touched our programs in so many positive ways, but I'll just sum it up with the quick anecdote that now when we pack for a canoe trip, we know to say, WWID, what would Ikse do? And if you remember that quick phrase, you're not going to forget stuff. We're going to open the ceremony with a classic camp song, a favorite and a very special song, a song that was guaranteed to bring tears at the end of a session, and a song that has a special connection with the summer of 2010, when 3 incredible young campers arrived at Voyageur for the first time, Ikse, Mamangwa, and Solange. I'm going to give you a quick translation for those who don't speak French, not of the whole song, but just the opening and the closing. And then after that, I'll ask for anybody who knows the song and wants to join in to please come forward, come up on stage, and we'll sing it together. We do need to be careful of the display in the center. It's a little fragile, so please try not to bump into that. The song is called Mon vrai destin, my true destiny. And it starts with a line that says, in my dreams, I hear a voice that tells me not to cry. But what a shame. My eyes are like clear springs. And the last line is almost like a pleading, a begging that says, don't leave me. Don't let me go. And yet, the bells are announcing my true destiny. French Camp family and friends, please come on up, and we're going to sing Mon vrai destin. We can stand in front. Stairs? Yeah, stairs is a good idea. Yeah.
Portant les cloches, m'annonce toujours mon vrai destin, mon vrai destin. La 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 la. Ne me quitte pas encore, ne me laisse pas partir, pourtant les cloches m'annoncent toujours mon vrai destin, mon vrai destin.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see you all here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Susan's cousin, big brother. And it's a great honor, and is a great honor to be an honorary uncle to Paul and Susan's children. And we're here to celebrate the life of Ikse Mennen. Thank you, Julie, for that beautiful music, and thank you, SJ, for the slideshow. Julie and SJ Kim are a very important part of Ikse's chosen family, and whether they like it or not, they're an important part of her birth family, too. We're like the board. We just absorb everything we learn. And merci to David and the Voyageurs for that beautiful music and for being such an important part of Ikse's life. Thank you. Today's going to be hard. It should be joyful too. If need be, the bathrooms are out the back door. Take a left all the way down. Hallway, last hallway on your right. There are also moments, there are places to have a quiet moment. If you need a quiet moment, I'll see you there. Consolation for our loss is certainly, it's hard to come by right now. But each of us must set out on a journey to find consolation in our own way. And to help us do that, Ikse's cousin, Rachel, will sing a Hebrew lullaby, Hinamatov. This is a lullaby that Ikse heard when she was a child and when she was a baby, at the beginning of her life and at the end of her life. And it's also a gathering song, which I think is very appropriate. It reminds us how good and pleasant it is for brothers and sisters to sit together. Now please note, all the songs are communal. Join in as you wish, as you can. Come up on stage. It's getting a little lonely up here. That means excellent company. Rachel. You want to borrow something? You want to use this?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear? Yes. I'm Rachel, Alex and Ikse's cousin. I was the one that lived close by. So, yeah, I find it only fitting that Susan asked me to come here and sing a song because all of our family dinners ended at WIP with me and them organizing a talent show. That's what we did every gathering. So yeah, Hine Matovu. Do we have the lyrics somewhere? There we go. Okay, it's how good and pleasant it is for us to be here together. Hine matov umanaim shevet achim gam yachad. So I'm gonna do the first phrase and you'll understand the melody and you'll repeat after me and I'll signal to you. But I wanted to ask if you will rise in body or in spirit, and we'd like to put your arm around the person next to you. Perfect. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. ידאי, 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 הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. ידאי, 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 הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Wow, you guys seem like you all grew up singing that song. Thank you.
It's my pleasure and honor to introduce to the stage Nicole Karen Anderson, one of the founding mothers of the Voyageur program and a longtime friend of Ikse.
Thank you. Thank you. Ikse's Life by Susan Huff. Jenna Lee Mennen was born the 13th of February, 1995 in the San Francisco Bay Area. Her parents, Paul Mennen and Susan Huff, had from day one thoughtfully provided the best present ever, big brother Alex. At once entertainment, guardian, faithful servant, and co-conspirator, Alex was a fixture at Jenna's side. The two of them explored the world, finding themselves braver and stronger together, but always willing to have their separate adventures too. Writing the usual description for new teachers, her parents settled on phrasing that seemed to encapsulate Jenna. What you need to know about my kid is that Jenna has never wanted to be the princess. She always wanted to be the knight. This remained true throughout Jenna's life. She was always a warrior, committed to righting wrongs and making the world a better place. When Jenna was 15, the summer camp she'd been going to for years closed down. Mom presented a new option, Les Voyageurs. Look, with this camp, you get to live in the woods. And if you go for a full 4 weeks, you get a great big adventure trip in the northern wilderness. The family drove Jenna to camp that first summer. They pulled into the parking lot, and a tall, thin man with a mane of gray curls bounded over and greeted Jenna enthusiastically in French. Cue deer in the headlights look. He tried again in very simple French. At this point, it was clear Jenna didn't remember a word of French and wasn't too sure about English. He changed to English and introduced himself as David. And as they went to get Jenna checked in, where she chose the camp name Ikse, he gradually began dropping more French words into the conversation. It was clear that Jenna was in good hands. Report cards from camp were entertaining. The counselors found a positive spin for everything, praising Jenna's commitment to speaking French even when whispering after lights out, and her leadership skills in teaching other students to climb trees. One of the very first people Jenna met at camp was Solange. When they said they would be together again next summer, did they already know this was a forever friendship? Jenna left for camp an anxious and often depressed teen, not too unusual for a 15-year-old. She returned calmer, stronger, happier, and incidentally, far beyond her classmates who had taken a year more of French class. She sat us down and explained that living in camp as Ikse, she became more the person she wanted to be. And in an effort to keep those changes alive, she would like to continue going by her camp name. In Ikse's next great adventure, she decided that a year studying in France would be wonderful. This entailed more than a few sacrifices. One of the best things about high school was band, and Ikwe's flute and other skills put her in leadership positions in both marching and symphonic bands. Marching band was particularly good because of its mix of demands: musicality, athleticism, teamwork, and self-discipline. The friends were another feature. May and SJ played trombone, and the band carpool vehicles were full of instruments and conversation, a lively mix as this pack of friends helped each other navigate life. Leaving for a year in France meant leaving band, and these friends that meant so much, but Ikwe leapt into the unknown and went off to Bois de Seney. Like many other exchange students, Ikwe discovered that it's hard to be that far away from home for that long. The great gift of this year was the host family. The Badaud family was warmly welcoming. They had little English, but a gift for slowing down their conversation to include their new bonus daughter, and they did indeed treat Ikwe as a daughter. The connection has remained strong across the years and across the miles. Ikwe returned to the US, and after a fabulous cross-country road trip, started college at UW-Madison. There was fencing and ultimate Scandinavian studies and runs along the lakeshore paths, and each summer a return to Les Voyageurs, now as an integral part of staff. Here Ikwe met more beloved friends. Here Solange and Ikwe met Jean Cano. Here Ikwe blossomed, exercising organizational skills, learning and teaching wilderness skills, living and growing in a strong and nourishing community. After college, Ikwe joined the staff at High Trails Outdoor Science School. For many hours each day, the staff took students out into the snowy woods and taught them about the natural world. Ikwe loved living in the high desert of Southern California and climbed with friends almost every weekend, stretching their abilities and drinking in the beauty of the high country. Did I say there? Yes, around this time, Ikwe began to feel constrained by she and her. Ikwe explained once that it's hard enough being small, young, and female in a male-dominated profession. Having every single sentence refer to you as female just makes it harder. They'd rather be seen as human. Similarly, one summer, Ikwe spent the summer with Line 3 protesters fighting to protect clean water in northern Minnesota. They became self-conscious about being an Anglo person who had chosen to take an Ojibwe name, as they spent time with Ojibwe people. Accordingly, they created the name Ikse with a similar sound, but no awkward etymology. Ikse still wondered where the fulcrum of their life could be found. Where could they gain the most leverage to make the world better? They decided on becoming a high school teacher, believing that learning history, civics, and government was becoming more important than ever. As COVID shut down the world, Ikse settled into remote grad school based in two harbors. One professor disapproved of Ikse's tendency to zoom in from a hammock in the backyard, but most had no quarrel with Ikse's choice of classroom. Living in Minnesota meant finally having decent health coverage and a chance to get a pesky lump looked at. The bad news arrived. It was not only cancer, but a supremely aggressive form. Ikse finished a master's in history, then settled into a life of treatment, volunteering at camp, and with the League of Women Voters, and occasional guide work. Their bucket list included some travel and writing, but highest on the list was making a home, a warm and hospitable place with good food and people who supported each other. They created the space with dear friends, chosen family. Visiting that house was always a treat. There would be laughter, music, conversations about the state of the world and how to improve it. There would be superb meals, often of foods foraged or grown in the backyard. It was truly a home. As it became clear that Ikse's life was going to be drastically shortened, they poured effort into finishing their first novel. In the closing weeks of Ikse's life, Jean Cano spent long hours formatting the work for publication, and the preview copies arrived in time for Ikse to see them. The collection of campfire stories was less polished, but was pushed forward with the help of friends. Both books are now in print, a lasting legacy. Ikse died on January 22nd, 2025, after a short time in hospice care. Family and friends had expected this. It had been more than 2 years since the terminal diagnosis. But it is still a blow. Ikse lived with intent, with love, and with a need to brighten their corner of the world, and they were a shining light. They were heartbroken not to be able to do the things they intended, not to have more chances to change the world. But in their short life, they did change the world. The ripples of their life and work are still radiating out and reflecting back, and they live on in our memory.
Merci, Nicole, and merci, Zagime, Susan, for that beautifully written biography of Ikse. Now I invite to the stage Solange and Cano. I'm not really going to try to introduce Solange and Cano. They are friends, they are family, they are integral members of the Voyager community, and we love them very much.
Hi, I'm Solange.
And I'm Jean Cano.
We've known Ikse for a long time through Voyager, High Trails, and most recently we lived with them here in St. Paul.
We are here today not only to celebrate Ikse, but also to celebrate the large and beautiful community that Ikse surrounded themselves with. The roles that you all played in Ikse's life. So, here's how it'll work. We're going to do a little activity. We're going to read a series of statements, and if that statement applies to you, please stand up if you are able, and remain standing until the end.
Please stand if you held Ikse as a baby, if you changed their diapers, soothed their tears, managed their tantrums, or otherwise participated in raising them from the beginning.
Please stand if you were part of Ikse's childhood. If you were a teacher or a family member or a friend or a cousin from way back. If you taught them life skills or told them stories or played with them when they were young.
Please stand if you've ever shared a canoe with Ikse. There we go.
If you've ever rock climbed, gone hiking, played ultimate frisbee, fenced, or did acro yoga with them.
Please stand if you ever played a board game with them, enjoyed a meal with them, laughed with them, enjoyed a great sunrise or sunset with them, or learned a new thing with them.
And please stand or remain standing if you support Ikse's community and hope Ikse's life will always bring us wisdom and strength.
Take a moment and look around at these faces. Ikse lives on in the memories and actions of each of us. These are the people who will share stories of Ikse for years to come, who will continue to quote them or do something a certain way because Ikse taught them, and who will understand when you get emotional at the sight of a mushroom and be ready with a hug. In short, these are the people who you can lean on. Through Ikse, this is your community too. Whether you've known Ikse since they were born or only for a little while, thank you for being a part of Ikse's life and for being part of our community. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Solange. Thank you, Cano. It's interesting. One of the many things today is to bring all of Ikse's worlds together. They lived in many worlds. And it's interesting to me, I just met Cano and Solange this morning. And guess what? Ikse had really good taste. And speaking of family and good taste, Mr. Tim is a childhood friend and a member of the family, whether he likes it or not. He will come and sing a very important song. Come on up, Tim. And I forgot our wonderful music director and pianist. Cheryl is a friend of the family's. Again, whether she likes it or not.
Thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to see all these faces. we're going to sing another song. I hope that you join in and we all get to hear each other's voices together. Yeah, so here we go. It's so easy to dream of the days gone by, so hard to think of times to come, and the grace to accept every moment as a gift that is given to some. What can you do with your days but work and hope that your dreams find your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you've loved it away? Love till you've loved it away. There are sorrows enough for the whole world round. There are no guarantees but the grave. But the lives we have lived and the times we have spent are treasures too precious to say. What can you do with the days but work and hope that your dreams find your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you've loved it away? Love till you've loved it away. What can you do with your days but work and hope that your dreams find your work to your play? What can you do with each moment of your life but love till you've loved it away? Love till you've loved it away. Thank you, everybody.
I have yet another honor to invite an important member of Ikse's chosen family. Ikse Stansbury was also a villager in our program who came back as an incredible counselor and mentor, was Ikse's counselor and then Ikse's co-worker and then Ikse's family. Ikse, please come on up.
Hi, everybody. Ikse wrote a lot of poetry throughout their life, and one of my first memories with Ikse was sitting underneath a tarp in a rainstorm in Voyageurs National Park, sharing our poetry with each other. And they continued to write and share their poetry as long as I knew them, and had written even before I met them. And of all the poems that Ikse wrote, this one was apparently the most requested to be read here today. And it's a poem that a lot of people have shared on Ikse's behalf. I had the pleasure to work with Ikse at Voyageur at our summer camp, as well as at High Trails, and as well as guiding for a company called Adventures in Good Company. We got to guide and be outdoors together in multiple contexts, and this poem has been shared in all of those communities as well. But at High Trails, there were quite a few counselors and instructors at High Trails who read this poem to their cabins of 5th and 6th grade students every week. And I myself had a lot of really impactful conversations with 5th and 6th grade girls based around this poem. It's called Wild Rose. You are no tulip, no rose, no small soft mammal. You are no porcelain doll, no plaything, no decorative pet. You are a wild rose, thorny and fierce. You defy trellises, tear them apart with ivy, turn them to earth with moss. Your roots crack rocks, your leaves search the sky. You breathe rain. You are no quiet, dewy dawn. You are the moonless night, the howling wind, the cold ropes of lashing rain. They say that you are too much, speak too much, move too much. They say you have too many edges. Tell them you are full of edges, crevices and canyons and cliffs, and that your curves are too big for them to see, rolling plains and verdant cradling valleys. If you are too much, they are too little. You powerful, thorny wild rose.
Ikse was a wonderful writer. Thank you, Elise. That was great. One of my last conversations with Ikse was about how bad writing was in graduate school. I couldn't disagree with her. And we agreed that the quickest way to ruin your writing style was go to graduate school. I'm happy to say Ikse maintained her writing style, and it was lovely. Holding fast to our memories of Ikse, it's very important, and so is sharing those memories. This afternoon, we have several speakers who will do just that. We also received many lovely written memories. In fact, we initially thought we'd like to hear them read out loud. We got way too many. We'd be having breakfast together Monday morning. So we appreciate that so many people shared their thoughts and stories, and we have compiled them in a little memory book. So it's down next to the novel and her bedtime story. So please feel free. There are more. Everyone knows how to get a hold of me, so I can do more. The group includes Elodie Trammell, Jean Cano Walker, Alex Mennen, and Susan Huff. But first we'll hear from Ikse's father, Paul Mennen.
Most of you know more about Ikse and Ikwe, the name she used for the second half of her short life. So I thought I would tell you a little more about Jenna, the name she used for the first half. She told me I could still call her Jenna, so I still often do. And she didn't even ask me to adapt the new personal pronouns, which she knew I would find difficult. She will always be Jenna to me. Some of you over the years have thanked me for raising such a wonderful daughter and have asked, how did we manage it? I'll tell you the answer. It was truly the easiest and most joyful thing. One of the things that made it easy was the permanent bond that formed almost immediately between Jenna and her older brother, Alex. I also grew up with very close sibling bonds, yet even to me, this was clearly special. They saw the world through different lenses, yet together they formed a team that was able to conquer any problem and find their own way. Many others also had a hand in raising Jenna, including her amazingly loving grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. And as you've already heard, she was also raised by her Les Voyageurs family, where she found a new confidence and a new identity. Susan's church was also a strong influence with many mentors. And Jenna's Jewish heritage from my side of the family was also important to her, especially after her birthright trip to Israel and she was known to bravely identify as Jewish when she heard any anti-Semitic comments. When Jenna was still just a few feet tall, she often complained, "Why are people talking to me like I'm a child?" She did, of course, look like a child. But she was already wise beyond her years. I was warned by my friends with older children to prepare for the moment will you be transformed in their eyes from knowing everything to suddenly becoming the lowliest of creatures and knowing nothing. This never happened. She always treated her parents with love, respect, and kindness. Alex and even our honorary daughters did the same, so we never had to live with any teen rebels. Here is an 11-year-old Jenna on her first backpacking trip. We climbed 2,400 feet to get to this spot, but she was already up to such a challenge. This is the two-man tent she shared with her brother while I slept in my camping hammock. Jenna went on many adventures with Susan as well, but more often it was the four of us, exploring the hills, water, snow, and sky together. I like to think we helped ignite her love of the outdoors, but Jenna's sense of adventure was so strong, I think she would have followed a similar path even if she grew up in a couch potato family. Here is another backpacking trip with the same trio, some 12 years later. By then, I had long since transitioned from master to student in outdoor skills, just as happened with every endeavor Ikse took seriously. You might think that would start to get annoying, but when my children surpass me, as they often did, I feel only pride. I think that I learned even more from Jenna than she learned from me, like how to truly love the rain and so many other small things that make every moment a joy. The love of words and the way we can put them together. The elements of lead climbing, how to improve my Frisbee forehand throw, which berries are edible, and more. And most importantly now, as I find it hard to live without her, I draw inspiration from Ikse herself, who continued to do the things she loved with the people she loved, up until the very moment that became impossible. Many of you are familiar with Ikse's recent writing. So I thought I would end with one of Jenna's early journal entries, a mixture of prose and poetry. This was written during a trip across parts of the Alaska and Canadian wilderness in our family's four-seat airplane when Jenna was 12 years old. And I think I'll see if you want to read this part.
I'd be honored to.
All right. It's right here.
I warned you today would be hard sometimes. You did a great job. Paul would like part of Ikse's journal. I don't know how long I'm going to last, but don't worry. David's backing me up, right? We got off to a late start today, so the sky is already bumpy, making my handwriting shaky. But the scenery is gorgeous. If I look out my window, I see a long, green, glittering, meandering river and the sparkly white mountains of the Canadian Rockies. A few clouds have tendrils of mist reaching down into the green hills and valleys. I know it's rain, but it looks like fog. I don't think many people get the chance to see rain from the outside. Even with the turbulence, I'm glad to be flying today. It surprised me, but I realized I actually missed living in the plane. She was a great writer. Here is one of her poems. Glacier. Carving, grinding, hundreds of years ago. Blue ice, unfathomable, wall mile high. Retreating, melting, giving way. Now all I see is rivers and valleys carved by ice, mountains with peaks of shining snow, green hills with rounded tops, cliffs steep with jagged tooth marks almost there. The glacier was a living thing, eating rocks and devouring trees. Now the glacier is extinct or gone, leaving only a lingering memory. The last couple of days, we stayed at a very comfortable B&B in Hinton called the Flying Dog. I got along well with the whole family, including the big, friendly old black lab who loves tug of war and a puppy named Farley who likes rolling around on the grass with a friendly kid. We went on a hike in Jasper National Park that was absolutely the most gorgeous hike I've ever been on. 3.5 miles going up. I admired flowers and birds and tried not to let the altitude get to me. The view at the top was spectacular. 3.5 miles down, I ran down, racing Alex and Dad. Did she win? Yeah. I'm not surprised. And Paul runs really fast. It was very steep and slippery with loose rocks and gravel, a strenuous hike even for my family. I have a million precious memories. Okay. Thank you.
Also, there was one final poem at the end of this journal entry, very short. Serpentine River, smoothly flowing, light green Athabasca, sparks of sun on the water. I have a million more precious memories, but even if some of those start to fade, the sense of the wonderful person that she was, the privilege to have her as my daughter, and the love we had between us will be with me forever. Thank you all for being here and sharing our love and our heartbreaking loss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elodie. I was asked to share something today that would celebrate Ikse's dirtbaggery. For those of you who don't know, the word dirtbag in this context refers to a dedicated rock climber who pursues the lifestyle that revolves around being outside and climbing rocks as much as possible, often sacrificing material comforts and regular employment and regular showers to do so. Ikse spent much of their 20s proudly dirtbagging, and there are countless stories that I could share from those adventures, many of which are in the bedtime stories, so be sure to pick up a copy downstairs. One of Ikse's favorite dirtbagging regions was Southern California. It was there that the two of us grew our climbing relationship and spent any spare time in pursuit of big rocks with an amazing group of similarly minded friends. At some point during this time, around 2019, a new climbing lingo emerged among our group. As many of you are aware, climbing is a sport that has no shortage of lingo. But as far as I can tell, this one is unique to us, so I'll teach it to you. There's two expressions, weet woo and woo wee. And I'll translate, though you might be able to tell a little bit what they mean. Generally, these are said when you're on the business end of a rope and stakes are high. Weet woo translates roughly to, oh God, this is so scary. If I mess this up, it's gonna hurt. I have to be really careful. I'm so scared. It kind of sounds like a siren, and I think it has a similar kind of vibe. Weet woo. Woo-wee, on the other hand, is said with relief. It means, that was crazy. I'm so proud of myself. I can't believe I did that. Wow. Woo-wee. As many of you know, Ikse had a penchant for silly little words and sounds, and as such, they were a big fan of this shorthand and used it often. It was a simple way to express and acknowledge your own fear. And I think people often believe that rock climbers are fearless, but Ikse would be the first person to point out that fearlessness and rock climbing do not go hand in hand. Some of the best climbers I know are scared very often. And for me and for Ikse, I think that feeling of pushing through that fear and conquering the climb is what kept us coming back to the sport. That and the beefy muscles, of course. And so it was this, along with being laid off due to the pandemic, that led 6 of us to Idlewild, California in June of 2020. Idlewild is a little town not far from Big Bear, where we were all living at the time.
Looming over this town is a really, really big rock called Ikse, or Lily Rock. It's roughly 1,000 feet tall at its tallest, and is comprised of beautiful quality granites, and it's a very popular climbing destination. For this day, we had split off into pairs to tackle this behemoth, and we're going to climb more or less near each other for the whole day. It was beautiful and sunny, and my climbing partner was climbing up above me, and I was anchored in below. And we were probably about 2 pitches up at this point, which is about 200 feet off the ground of about 1,000, so it's pretty early in the day still. I was looking around at the scenery and just taking in the beautiful sunny day when I heard, so quiet I almost missed it, "Weet woo." "Weet woo." And I look around because it's like, surely that could only be one person, and I can't see, and I leaned out way over the rock and peered around, and I saw Ikse about 40 feet to my left, navigating a very tricky section of rock, just weet-wooing to themselves. And I snapped this photo in that moment. I love this photo for many reasons, but I think one of the main ones is that it's one of the ways that I remember Ikse best, as a small figure against a huge background. And that's not because they themselves were small, but because they loved being in big places. As a climber against a 1,000-foot cliff, or cowboy camping in a giant desert basin, or a canoeist in the middle of a massive lake, the 8th biggest lake in Minnesota, I've heard. They were so at home in these places and these landscapes that they almost seemed like a fixture of them at times. And I think that this photo captures one of those moments. But what it doesn't capture is the difficulty of this section and the rather perilous position that Ikse was in. We were 200 feet off the ground, and there was very little in the way of hand or footholds right there. Ikse's rope isn't directly above them, but it connected pretty far to the side. And all of that in combination with the angle of this rock and a slip would have made for a very unpleasant fall, which is often referred to as a cheese grater. So, yeah, weet woo indeed. They kept at it though, and soon I lost sight of them around that corner, and it was my turn to climb. And soon we arrived at the same point for the beginning of the 3rd pitch, and I asked them how that was and how they were doing, and they said with a huge grin, "That was terrifying." Woo-wee. The rest of that day was a bit of a trial, and we shared laughs and curses and tears. And just before dusk, the 6 of us did reach the summit of Ikse. One of the last things that I told Ikse was that I promised to spread as much Ikse-flavored good in the world as I can. And so, in the spirit of that, I wanted to pass on this little nugget of Ikse wisdom. They taught me that it's okay to admit when things are scary and hard, and then maybe you all, the next time you find yourself in a challenging situation, can remember Ikse and give a little weet woo. You might be surprised how much it helped you push through. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So, as you know by now, Ikse and I knew each other from our wilderness canoe camp, Les Voyageurs. At camp, we train our participants to be self-sufficient. Not yet, not yet. At camp, we train our participants to be self-sufficient in the backcountry. Camping, cooking, canoeing, first aid, you name it. This is something that both Ikse and I took seriously and took great pride in. So part of our first week on site is training the kids on what to do if your canoe flips over, in the middle of a lake, of course. So one day at base camp, we were doing just that. So we demonstrate on benches before, and that's us demonstrating on dry land before we get out on the water. So we taught the basics of how to get your canoe back upright, and soon enough we were practicing on the open water. Bada bing, bada boom, that's kind of what it looks like. This, of course, involved a lot of capsizing intentionally, then hailing another canoe to come rescue you. All was going well, and the kids were learning a lot, until the wind picked up on our lake. Suddenly, a routine day of canoe skills had turned into an emergency. The wind was spreading all the canoe groups apart. We were generally getting pushed towards the far end of the lake, the Russian camp, but we were getting fanned out farther and farther from one another. I remember I was in the water being rescued as the wind picked up. And as soon as I got back into my boat, I leapt into action, and Ikse and the other counselors were doing the same. I think there were 3 or 4 counselors for maybe like 15 or 16 campers. So that was our first mistake. We were spread too thin. So back in my boat, I remember seeing the kids in the water, some separated from their canoes by the wind, some hanging on to their swamped canoes, and completely at the mercy of wherever the wind was taking their boats. Already some of the farther away boats looked like tiny specks on the horizon, and all I could do was hope that they were okay. I began to paddle furiously towards the specks that were closest to me. It was a wild goose chase and chaos on the water. After much time and effort, I got the 4 or 5 campers closest to me wrangled and back in their canoes. I have an image burned in my head of that day of lashing my canoe to the canoe next to me because the kids couldn't steer in the wind and we paddled back together. Throughout this, the only thing I could do was pray that the other counselors were having success wherever they were on the lake. After what seemed like ages, my group reached the far shore, and when I arrived, I met up with Ikse, who was there. And between the 2 of us, unfortunately, only half the campers were accounted for. We really had no ideas where the others were ended up. We were kind of waiting on the beach. Should we go back out there? Eventually, thank goodness, Ikse arrived, pulled their canoe up on the beach and just collapsed, looking utterly exhausted and defeated, but with all the rest of the remaining campers in tow. Everyone breathed a huge sigh of relief. Everyone was accounted for, and Ikse had done the lion's share of the rescues. All told, they probably saved about twice as many kids as I had. And in this moment, I gained a ton of respect for a person that I already admired greatly. Afterward, when debriefing this incident, which we call le crise canoe, the canoe crisis, I learned that Ikse had re-injured their rotator cuff, reopening a wound from the year prior. They were in tremendous pain, especially after the adrenaline had died down, but there was no regret. They had been depleted of the strength and ready to collapse. I asked them how they had managed to rescue all of their remaining campers and canoes, despite this, and they said something I'll never forget. They simply said, "I had to find more strength. Even though there was none left, I had no choice." Ikse had a tremendous sense of duty and responsibility to all their campers as the one in charge. They didn't have to put themselves at risk and rescue every remaining camper, but they did. They didn't have to re-tear their rotator cuff, but they did. And in that moment, I realized exactly how hardcore of a person I was dealing with. Ikse was gritty and determined and had deep strength. And that continued to be the case. Ikse often talked about the good kind of suffering on backpacking adventures and other paddling trips. Pushing through pain and other barriers was always worth it for the scenery and the sunsets and the quality time spent with others. This probably sounds very familiar to a lot of you because they were tough and steadfast in every aspect of their life. They approached everything with 100% effort and dedication. Whether it be writing a book, going on a long backpacking trip, or climbing a wall, they were always a full sender. And Ikse absolutely loved that they were strong and swole and tenacious and just a badass. They absolutely reveled in it, as you can hear in their poetry and other works. But Ikse was also extremely thoughtful and generous in helping others. They were fiercely competent at most everything they tried, and they loved to share their knowledge and skills with others. They were a talented and patient teacher. Ikse, I'm heartbroken we'll never get to canoe together again, but I'm so enriched for having known you and learned from you. Lastly, I just want to give a thank you to all those people that turned toward Ikse and helped them towards the end of their life. Ikse's final days were better with your support. Thanks.
I don't know how to use a few words to adequately express anything that feels meaningful. This is the type of thing I'd normally solicit Ikse's thoughts on, but they have not been responding to my messages. They did say something that could be interpreted as guidance on this issue, which is that they hoped my memories of them wouldn't be dominated by their final moments. But I actually have a good story that involved cancer, and I decided to go with that. The day before Ikse started their first chemotherapy, Ikse and I were driving from Two Harbors to the Twin Cities to make it to Ikse's dentist appointment later that day. The dentist appointment was actually significant because chemotherapy can often be pretty hard on your gums, so it's important to start with good oral health, and gums can be less able to withstand dental treatment after being subjected to chemotherapy. But while we were on the way, Ikse got a call from the dentist's office saying that something had come up and Ikse's dentist was no longer available at Ikse's appointment time, so they would have to reschedule Ikse for a later date. So Ikse explained why they needed a cleaning on that specific day. The receptionist said something like, "Wow, that really sucks. I'm so sorry, but there are no free slots. It's not possible to get you in today." Ikse suggested that an option was canceling a different patient's appointment instead, which was probably less critical. The receptionist said they couldn't do that, so Ikse suggested, well, what about calling another patient, explaining the situation, and asking if they'd be willing to postpone their appointments, since they probably would be. The receptionist said they don't really do that sort of thing, and Ikse explains that that's because there usually isn't a good reason to do that sort of thing, but now there is, and the receptionist could just do it, and nothing was going to go wrong. And throughout this whole conversation, Ikse was being extremely polite, expressing gratitude for how helpful the receptionist was being, even though it took pretty heavy nudging to get helpfulness out of the receptionist. But anyway, it did work. The receptionist agreed to try that, and the receptionist called back in a few minutes and said that she had indeed did get Ikse an appointment for that day, so that worked out. So my takeaway from this story is, often it seems like a lot of people either have a habit of being difficult or don't know how to stand up for themselves when they need to, but neither of those was true of Ikse. They were kind, even when they were disagreeing with someone, and they were certainly willing to stand up for something when they thought it was important, and they encouraged others to do that as well. So that is one of many things that I appreciated about Ikse.
That was Alex, if you were wondering. I'm Susan, sometimes called Zagame, and I have the honor and privilege of being Ikse's mom. You won't be surprised to know that being Ikse's mom has been a very educational experience. Paul was absolutely right to point out that being Ikse's parent was a very educational experience. It was also thoroughly entertaining. I always told the kids we had them for the entertainment value. We had so many adventures, and I cherish the memories, even though I'm completely outraged that we aren't going to be making more of them. For years, Ikse's and my arrangement was that the big birthday present from Mom was an expedition, even though it wasn't necessarily right at birthday time. Clearly, this is totally selfish on my part, right? We can pretend it's a present for Ikse. Yeah, it was a present for me. I think Ikse was 9 when we camped overnight at Big Basin and we watched a ring-tailed cat stroll across our campsite in the twilight. The next day we went on a steep 11-mile hike to admire beautiful waterfalls. And to this day, this is one of the longest days I have ever spent hiking. Because although those 9-year-old legs kept going, they weren't very fast. And we were slowed by the need to greet and name every newt that we met along the path. There were a lot of newts. Another year, it was horseback camping. And this was the occasion for one of my greatest parenting fails ever. After tucking my child in for the night, I was talking to our host, and I mentioned I was not entirely looking forward to riding 20 miles a day. I had a surgery scheduled that could not be done yet, and I was not in a comfortable position, but that I hoped to piggyback on Ikse's enjoyment and find my own enthusiasm for it by mirroring Ikse's. I went to bed and found my child in floods of tears. Ikse had overheard and was devastated to think that their enjoyment was bought at the price of any sacrifice on my part. After frantic backpedaling, we did have a very good trip. It was a hard lesson in keeping my mouth shut, one that I have still never quite absorbed. Ikse never gave up that aversion to having good things come at someone else's expense, though. Another year, Ikse and I dropped into a beautiful aspen grove in northern Yosemite at a height of fall colors. And Ikse stopped, pretty much stock still, and gasped, "Lothlorien!" Glimpses of other trips feature bears, rattlesnakes, moose, many rainbows, spectacular thunderstorms, a certain Scottish mountain that you may read about in the bedtime stories, and an unforgettable dinner on a ledge talking about life and futures and watching the sunset over the Hetch Hetchy Reservoir. Then, of course, there's watching my chemo patient canoe partner out paddle and out hike me, carrying the heaviest loads up the steepest trails on our last Boundary Waters trip. And as always, Ikse was cheerful and patient and did more than their share of every chore. Ikse was amazing. They were brilliant and brave and beautiful, kind, emotionally intelligent, which I have no idea how they got that out of our family, practical, creative, strong and loving. And yet it doesn't do Ikse justice if we don't admit that Ikse was also a mess sometimes. I say this with the greatest love and respect. No one admires Ikse more than me. But reading their words, we know that Ikse struggled with depression and anxiety, wrestled with anger and resentment and pride, and fought every day to show up as the best person they could be, rather than letting their inner toddler come out for the day. In the submitted memories of Ikse, Tai said something wonderful about Ikse teaching her not to put off doing something until you're good at doing it. Right? This really embodies the way Ikse lived. Ikse didn't wait to be good at being the kind of person they wanted to be before starting to do the things that they thought were right. And if anything, I find it even more inspiring that Ikse had these challenges, like all of us have, and still made the world a better place one day, one task, one conversation at a time. Loving family member, loyal friend, inspiring guide and educator, beloved daughter. I miss Ikse dreadfully, but I will carry forward the many lessons I learned from them. And I will see them in every mushroom, every newt, every rainbow, and every sunset over the water.
Oh, thank you, readers. That was great. Somehow I feel a little better. Thank you. So it's, oh, we have Marion. Oops. That was in honor of my niece.
I get to invite Marion to the stage, another longtime voyageur, family member, who is going to lead us in a very special song that Ikse specifically requested. Ikse actually had always said, you know, this song just sounds like it was made for a funeral. It's called Qui peut faire de la voile sans vent? Marion, did you want to say a word about the song? Or?
You can if you got it. I can. You
Why
say
don't-
something and then I'll say something.
I'll just say that it's another camp favorite. You should know that some of the camp songs are meant to bring energy and enthusiasm, and others are meant to bring tears and thoughtfulness. And this one asks us, who can sail without the wind? And we're going to invite voyageurs again up to sing. Yeah?
I think just singing from where you are.
Singing from where we are for this one.
For those who have ever been part of the folk process, you'll know that songs morph over time and depending upon who's singing them. Why, thank you. I'll get as close as I need to be. So if those of you know this song and the words are slightly different, or the melody is slightly different, or the rhythm is slightly different, that's okay. Just sing along. For those who are just learning it by hearing it today, feel free to, once you catch the melody, just ooh along. We don't really care around the campfire if you have the whole thing or your words are perfect. I think the words of this song are particularly appropriate thinking about Ikse and the amazing things that they're able to do. You know, who can sail without the wind? I bet you they could. Who can row without oars? Things like that. So, and one of the lines is, who can leave a parting friend without shedding tears? All right, here we go.
Thank you, that was beautiful, and thank you, Cheryl. So I think I'm in the right spot. So back to the board. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce another unwilling soul who got sucked into the black family vortex. May. May Zhang, there you are, darling. May will be singing If You're Out There. And please join in.
Larry and Sharon. Please get closer to the mic. Mary, Larry, and Sharon. Please sing along. If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every person all across the land. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, we're already late. for a song to sing, search for a melody, search for someone to lead. We've been looking for the world to change. If you feel the same, then go on and say if you're out there. Sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting no more broken promises, no more call to war, unless it's love and peace that we're really fighting for. We can destroy hunger, we can conquer hate, put down the arms and raise voices. We're joining hands today. Oh, I was looking for a song to sing, search for a leader, the leader was me. We were looking for the world to change, but we can be heroes. Just go on and say if you're out there. Sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now. If you're ready, we can shake the world. Believe again, starts within. We don't have to wait for destiny. We should be the change that we want to see if you're out there. Oh, if you're out there and you're ready now, sing it loud, say it out if you're out there. Sing along with me if you're out there. I'm dying to believe that you're out there. Stand up and say it loud if you're out there. Tomorrow's starting now. If you're out there, if you're out there, if you're out there. If you hear this message, wherever you stand, I'm calling every person all across the land. We're the generation, we can't afford to wait. The future started yesterday, but we're already late.
That was incredible. Nous sommes ensemble. We are together. We are connected. We've come to the time for closing words. I want to thank everybody again so much for coming together to remember, to celebrate Ikse. Do we have the Tikkun Olam slide? We can all do our part to help immortalize Ikse by continuing their work of Tikkun Olam. Tikkun Olam was something that Ikse and I bonded over very early in our shared Jewish heritage. Tikkun Olam is Hebrew for to repair the world, to make the world a better place. We grew up learning that this was a responsibility, this was a duty. This came naturally, this was the way it was supposed to be. And I believe that one of Ikse's most powerful ways of helping to repair the world and to heal the world was their ability to build connections. Building connections, helping people to feel connected, to feel welcome, to feel part of something bigger. Ikse was a master at helping people feel more connected. Whether it was a lost and troubled teen, all the way up to just this last summer when I watched Ikse help the kid that nobody else seemed to be able to reach, or a new staff member, or friends and family. Ikse knew how to make all of us feel part of something bigger. We are all connected. It is when we lose sight of this connection that things start to fall apart and we have all kinds of problems. And sometimes it feels like we live in a world right now that's programmed to tear apart those connections, to break down connections. So please help us to heal the world by reaching out and building connections the way Ikse taught us. Ikse taught me, in particular, to become a better listener. There's so many Ikse stories I want to tell, but one of the best things that I learned from Ikse was how to listen deeper, how to listen better. And now every time that I listen to one of my students, or a friend, or a family member, or even a stranger, I can feel Ikse's spirit, and their legacy lives on. I'd like to close with something that Ikse opens their book with, a favorite tradition. It comes from Africa, but we've made it part of our way of doing things at Voyageur. When there's a story to tell, you announce to the audience by saying, "Histoire." And the answer or the response when you want to hear the story is, "Raconte." So when I say histoire, you in the audience will say, "Raconte." We'll do it a few times. Histoire. Raconte. Histoire. Raconte. Histoire. Bon. You guys are good. This story came to me when I was thinking about Ikse and preparing for this weekend, and it just was the one that I thought would make sense. It's a short one. I had just arrived in Cameroon. I was new to Central African culture. And I made my first friend, the owner of a restaurant. His name was Justin, and I loved the food there. And Justin and I would spend time together in the restaurant, and we began to spend time out of the restaurant together. After about 2 weeks, Justin said to me, "David, you've become an important friend to me. It's time that I introduce you to my parents." And I thought, okay, this is a serious relationship now. It seemed odd to me from my American cultural context, but I said, yeah, I'd be honored to meet your parents. And this was no easy task. His parents were in Fongotongo, the village. There's only a shared taxi once a week on market day. The shared taxi, you bend and fold 7 or 8 people into a seat designed for 3, and you ride on the bumpy dirt road to get out there. We arrived in Fongotongo, we walked over hills, and we arrived at Justin's house. He took me into the back behind the house, and we walked up to 2 gravestones. He walked right up to the first one, and he said, "Dad." And he looked at the other one, "Mom, I want you to meet my friend David." This wasn't what I was expecting at all. But I came here knowing that I was to learn about their culture and their way of doing things, and I was so touched. And I stood there quietly. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think. And he proceeded to tell his parents a little bit about me and how honored he was to make an American friend. And then he turned around, and what is common with men in Central African culture, he took me by the hand and we walked hand in hand into the house, and then we ate a feast. I had met his parents. I felt so fortunate. And this actually was not an unusual incident. If you've seen too many movies, you might think that there's some kind of magical witchcraft and sorcery in talking to those who are past, but in Cameroonian and particular Bamileke culture, you simply talk to them. Often the graves are in their front yards or in their backyards. They're kept close rather than far away. Death is ever present in Central African culture, and they've developed powerful tools to handle this. And one particular friend later who I felt close to took me to meet his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. And I sat before the skulls of the ancestors, and he introduced me, we chatted. On the way out, I felt brave enough to be a little, to push things and be a little goofy, and I said to my friend, I said, do they ever respond? And I'd meant it in a little bit of humor, but he stopped in his tracks. And he looked deep into my eyes, and he said, toujours. Nous sommes toujours ensemble. Which means, roughly, always. We're always together. And he continued to walk away. And I've taken that to heart. And I also, the one last thing I'll add is that just a few days later, we were at a party, and my friend's father's picture was on the wall, and one of the elders of our village had had maybe a bit too much to drink, and he got into a very long conversation with his dear friend. And it was so animated. I got to sit there like a fly on the wall and watch him just converse. And you could see how much better he felt afterwards. Well, these last few weeks I've taken to greeting the picture of Ikse in my classroom and telling Ikse how I'm going to start my day and how I'm going to try my hardest to reach another student today to help make the world a better place. And this is how we move forward. Thank you very much. I have just a few final announcements. There will be food and conversation downstairs. Let me remind you that there are copies of Ikse's incredible books also downstairs. Please take a copy. There's a campfire at 8 o'clock at Como Park tonight, and there's some directions for that. There's also online versions of the books, of Ikse's books, if you'd like to prefer the digital versions. And were there any other announcements that we needed to share? I'm sure I forgot one or two, but I think that's everything. Thank you all so much for a beautiful ceremony and for being together. May we go on in peace, and may we work towards Tikkun Olam with Ikse in our hearts and in our heads.
bad at that. I always like have to like do it. This was a backup mask for Beyonce. Yeah. So I bought a bunch of masks. I just gave it an outfit. This is my second outfit for this event. The long arms. Was stationed next to the clinic. Declutter. I'm deboarding my books. It's hard. I can speak, so I failed Japanese. Norway is the one because culturally it is the widest step I've ever done in my life. From who I am as a person to what Japanese culture requires of me. It is like the antithetical. Because, I was thinking about this the other day because I appropriately students went to a drama vacation, and I also was comatose in the last week of life. And so, like, for me to throw myself under the stretcher that was coming down the stairs and have back pains for the rest of my life was a choice. But I did it, me and my 67-year-old partner.